We have Jelmer in Netherlands. How are you?
Hi, Matt. I'm fine, thank you. Hi, Paul. How are you doing?
I'm doing well.
All right. So I can tell you I'm very nervous because English is not my native language. I feel that this whole debate is always very much about the precise wording, and so you are in a huge advantage.
Well,
but I'll do my best.
I actually, based on what the call screener put in here in the notes, I think this is possibly something where language got in the way, because it says here that, well, go ahead and state what it is that you wanted to ask.
Yeah, so the thing, I called about 2 months about the same issue, and the thing that I want to talk about is that saying that God either exists or doesn't exist is, as far as I can tell, a false dilemma.
It's absolutely not a false dilemma. It is a direct logical negation. Either X exists or X does not exist. That is a direct logical negation. It is true for absolutely everything. It is X exists or X does not exist. Those are the only two options.
So is that true in the center of a black hole also?
Yes, it's true anywhere, everywhere, all the it is true. Yeah, because you were suggesting that, okay, maybe it's indeterminate whether or not God exists, but that's a different question. See, because God either exists or God doesn't exist, and that is independent of whether or not you can determine if God exists.
I'm asking you if the law of excluded middle holds in the center of a black hole.
I have no reason to think that it doesn't hold there. Do you have any evidence that it doesn't hold there?
Really?
Yes.
There's no reason that it doesn't hold.
Why would you ask me really, really yes? I just told you I have no reason to think that it does not apply there. These are viewed as universals. These are the identity, non-contradiction, excluded middle, or the laws of logic. Why wouldn't they work in a black hole?
When science agrees that all logic breaks down in the black hole.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Science tells you nothing about logic. Science, there's no, anytime a scientist says all logic breaks down, they're talking out of their ass, because logic doesn't break down. When scientists say stuff like that as a colloquial, oh, this defies logic, it means we don't understand what's going on. It does not mean that it can violate the law of identity or non-contradiction excluded middle, because every scientist who has any grounding and understanding in philosophy and logic will recognize identity, non-contradiction, and excluded middle are apparently absolute, inviolate, always the case.
And
unless you have evidence.
So you're actually claiming that you know what goes on in the center of a black hole?
No, sir. I'm claiming that you don't know how to listen to me, because I said I do not have evidence
that the law of excluded.
Oh my God! Are you going to listen to me, or are you going to talk?
Claim about the center of a black hole.
Are you going to listen to me, or are you going to talk?
Well, are you listening to me?
No, I'm not. I'm not listening to you.
More than I do.
So the problem here is that you're not listening to me. I said I have no reason to think these don't apply in a black hole, and your follow-up question to me was, am I claiming to know that they do work in a black hole? No, that's not what I claimed. Why is it that if you ask me a question and I answer, I don't have any evidence that they don't work, why would you then come back with, oh, so you're saying you know they do work?
No, that's not what I said. So now you said you don't know if they work, if they hold in the center of a black hole. That's what you're saying. You don't know, you're not really sure. Is that correct?
No, I believe that they hold true everywhere, absolutely, all the time. However,
so you're 100% convinced?
Would you fucking let me finish a sentence? Do you not? I get there's a language barrier, but when I pause and say the word however, that means there's more coming. If I say I am convinced that they work everywhere, and I am not certain that they work everywhere, that's not a contradiction. And when you asked me about a black hole, my position was, I believe that they work there. I have no reason to think that they don't. And then I asked you, do you have reason to think they don't? And you came back with, scientists say logic breaks down in a black hole, which is not accurate. So do you have evidence that identity, non-contradiction, excluded middle do not function in a black hole, are not true in a black hole?
No, I don't have evidence, but you just said that you are not certain if they hold. Is that correct?
Correct. Okay, let me make this really clear for you, Jelmer. I am not absolutely certain.
You immediately
Would you let me make this fucking clear? I am not absolutely certain about any. Oh my God! Can you let me finish one fucking sentence here? I am not absolutely certain about anything, and I've seen no demonstration that anyone can be absolutely certain about anything. And if you don't have evidence to show that the laws of logic break down in a black hole and no longer function, why are you talking to me?
Are you just as certain that the laws of logic holds in the center of a black hole as they do outside of the center? Are you just as certain about that?
Yes.
Oh, so now you're really claiming how the center of a black hole works.
No, I'm not. And that's because you're not listening. You're not listening.
I am.
No, you're not. And the proof is that is you keep fucking interrupting to say stuff. I said, I'm not absolutely certain about anything. Which means I'm not absolutely certain that the laws of logic work in a black hole. And then you ask me, am I just as certain about them working in a black hole as I am out? And the answer is yes. I am just as confident that the laws of logic apply in a black hole as out a black hole. And until you have some way to demonstrate that they don't, what's the point?
Well, the thing is that science uses calculations and mathematics to try to interpret what's going on in the universe, how the universe works. And all their mathematics and all their calculations break down in the center of a black hole. Now,
which doesn't tell you anything. Which doesn't tell you anything about whether or not the laws of logic break down.
Yeah, Jelmer, you're confusing the laws of science with the laws of logic. Laws of science are merely things that we observe for which we have no exceptions. That's what a law of science is. And you probably have heard scientists say that
on mathematics.
He's not listening.
You take axioms and you take rules of inference. These are the basics of mathematics.
I don't know. No. Jelmer, the basics of mathematics is logic. And when higher order mathematics break down, that doesn't mean that logic broke down.
To say that.
And in fact, they don't even say that mathematics breaks down before the Planck time. All they say is the laws of physics may or may not break down before Planck time, which is something you probably heard a scientist say and probably thought they meant laws of logic. But you're talking about three different fields now: logic, science, and math. I know they're related, and I know they have similar foundations in that they're properties of the universe, but they are not the same thing. So when you're coming at us with this whole black hole scenario, that doesn't actually have anything to do with logic. Black hole scenarios, those are laws of physics that we think might break down. So is it possible that that is what you heard and what you think people are claiming?
And mathematics and logic are related.
Yes, mathematics is contingent upon logic. And when math breaks down, that does not mean logic breaks down.
We use axioms and inference rules. That is mathematics.
It's very clear that you are not thinking about what's being said to you. You're just waiting for your turn to talk so you can spit out the next thing. Mathematics is contingent upon logic. Correct?
No, I think it's the other way around.
Well, then you are wrong, because you can't have math until you have logic. You cannot do math until you have identity, non-contradiction, and excluded middle. You are functionally ass backward about which one is contingent, because there's nothing about identity that has anything to do with mathematics, is in any way contingent on mathematics. Mathematics are the tools that we've developed to make calculations, but all of those are subservient, contingent to logic. This is the basics. This is logic 101. It's math 101.
They are presuppositions, correct?
No. Well, so all right. What's presuppositions?
Wow.
I'm asking. You said they're presuppositions, and I want to know what you mean. Which ones?
The laws of logic, laws of identity.
Yes, we presuppose them.
They are presuppositions. Yes. So
correct.
They are equal to axioms in mathematics, correct?
No. They're not equal.
No?
Correct.
Why not?
What? You just seem befuddled. You don't seem actually interested at all in the answer or the explanation. You just seem confused that I would say this.
And giggling isn't really a response.
I am confused because...
I know you're confused because you don't understand how logic, say, identity, non-contradiction, excluded middle, these are presuppositions. that serve as a foundation. They basically describe a single Venn diagram with a circle where A is A, everything is not A, and nothing is both A and not A at the same time in the same way. Because of that, you need that foundation in order to do math, because you can't add one apple to another apple until you have one apple, and one apple requires the logical foundation of identity. And the same thing is true for abstract concepts like a quantity of one. You can't have a quantity of one unless you have identity. You have to have identity first.
And an axiom is more like a triangle has three sides. That's just something we're all going to agree to, but it's not like part of nature. We're just going to... So the axiomatic isn't built on logic per se. Axioms are just things that we're going to agree upon so that we can speak a common language.
Exactly, they are presuppositions.
Yes, but not all presuppositions are equal. See, you can presuppose something under the framework of logic. You have to have that logic, otherwise you don't begin to be able to have axioms like, you know, the three angles of a triangle add up to 180 degrees. Which actually isn't the axiom, because that's something you can demonstrate with math.
Right.
But without identity, non-contradiction, excluded middle, you can't have anything. You can't have a reason. How could you have mathematics without reason?
Right. And when mathematics breaks down and reason breaks down...
No, sir.
You're still
no, sir. When mathematics breaks down, when somebody says mathematics breaks down, they don't mean math breaks down. They mean our understanding that we are codifying with mathematics in order to describe something stops here. It doesn't mean that it won't be solvable, that there won't be an equation later on to discover. And even if it does, even if that's what somebody actually meant, that there will never be mathematics to describe this, that is still contingent upon reason. And if the math breaks down in that sense, that doesn't mean reason has broken down. Reason is, there's never been any demonstration ever, and there could not be one of reason breaking down.
Black hole.
There's nothing that violates identity, non-contradiction, excluded middle.
You're claiming that everything just keeps working in the center of black hole.
No, what I'm saying is we know that it works, and until somebody demonstrates that it doesn't work in the black hole, the default position is to assume that it works there as well. Just like you haven't bothered to ask, do the laws of logic break down inside my penis? You haven't asked that. Do you have any reason to think that they would break down inside my penis?
The science doesn't know if 1 + 1 is 2 in the center of a black hole, but you still hold that logic just... That's
not true. 1 + 1 is still 1 + 1 is what it is. You're
you're trying to put abstract content.
Why can't you answer the question that I'm asked? Do you have good reason to think that the laws of logic break down inside my penis?
I prefer not to talk about your penis.
Well, I prefer not to talk to you anymore at all.
Great. But you're totally irrational if you claim that you know what's going on in the center of black hole. Well, the whole...
No, sir. No, sir. No, sir. No, sir.
The whole world of science says that...
You keep saying that I'm irrational, and I'm trying to come up with an example. So let's set aside my penis. I have a tube here. Do you think that the laws of logic break down inside this tube that I'm holding?
I have no idea, but the tube is part of the world we are living in.
So is a black hole. So is a black hole.
Yeah, except that
you don't have any reason to think that logic breaks down inside of a black hole either.
No. At the center of black hole, the calculations break down. So you're
no, sir.
Knowledge about what goes on.
As I've explained several times, the fact that you cannot do further calculations to understand this while outside of it and not having access to information does not mean that logic stops working anywhere ever. You have a lot of work to do in order to demonstrate that logic breaks down anywhere ever. And until you do, there's no reason to think that it breaks down anywhere ever, including the center of a black hole, that tube, or my dick.
Logic holds in the center of a black hole. You have no proof or evidence for that at all.
What the fuck is your point, Jelmer? What point is it that you want to get to?
So if you are not sure if the law of excluded middle holds in the center of a black hole, you have no foundation whatsoever to expect that somebody else accepts your claim when you say that the true nature of reality is either divine or not divine.
No, you're very, very, very confused here because what you just said is that if I don't know that, then I don't know whether somebody accepts. I don't care whether somebody accepts. That's the thing about logic and science. They don't care whether or not you accept them. It's true irrespective. And the fact that I can't tell you for absolute certain what goes on in the center of a black hole doesn't mean that you have any reason to think that logic breaks down there. And everything that we know and understand about logic shows that it doesn't.
This is a red herring. You're misrepresenting me.
I'm not a red. This is not a red herring.
Yeah, well, you are.
Okay, prove it. Prove it, or I'm done. Where's the red herring?
If you're not completely certain if the laws of excluded middle holds in the center of a black hole, you have no foundation to expect that anybody else accepts.
You're wrong.
You're wrong. Claim.
You're wrong, Jelmer. Here's why.
God exists.
I'm not absolutely certain that the laws of logic apply outside of a black hole. Why? The black hole is fucking irrelevant. I am convinced, as a presupposition, demonstrated by their continued reliance, that the laws of logic apply everywhere as far as we can tell. You want to bring up a black hole as if, well, are you certain here? You don't have to bring up the black hole at all, Jelmer. You could say, Matt, are you certain that the laws of logic apply anywhere and everywhere? And my answer is no, because as I told you 20 minutes ago, I'm not absolutely certain about anything. That does not mean, the lack of absolute certainty does not mean that I can't have reasonable, rational positions, including the demonstrable effectiveness of the laws of logic.
Right.
Okay, thanks for the right. I'll take that.
Trouble with laws, and I didn't understand this when I was a theist, was that laws of science and laws of logic apply as long as they apply. And the reason we hold to them is because we've never seen an exception to them. The minute we see an exception to, oh, here's a circumstance where gravity doesn't work, well, then we're not going to call it a law of gravity anymore. Or, you know, these laws are essentially, they're kind of committing a black swan fallacy in its own way, but they're useful because they give predictable results. So a law is not something that God had to prescribe. A law is an observation for which we have no exceptions. So I think he's got some confusion there.
So partly, I'm guilty of this, as are many other people, which is the notion that these aren't laws. Identity, non-contradiction, excluded middle have been called the laws of thought.
Right.
But they're not laws like scientific laws, which, by the way, so proof applies in mathematics and laws apply in physics. And, you know, you begin with an observation, a hypothesis, you go through the testing thing, and then you get to theory, which, by the way, the theory isn't the law either. Laws are, for the most part, descriptive. All we're doing is saying, this is the way the universe works. And as far as we can tell, it seems to work that way uniformly. Does gravity work the same way everywhere in the universe? I don't know. Until somebody demonstrates that gravity is working differently in different parts of the universe, for sure, then we should just begin with this presumption of uniformity, which is what science is based on. And that presumption of uniformity, by the way, that science is based on, is not a problem in the sense of, oh, we found something that doesn't appear uniform. Clearly, that can't be true. No. As soon as science finds something that changes or corrects what they thought was the case, then our knowledge changes. Exactly.
Yeah, and that is actually one of the proper presuppositions. He was trying to get into weird things that are presuppositions, but uniformity is one thing we hold as presuppositional.
Yeah. I have a handful of things that I have to take as presuppositions. The foundation being the air quotes laws of thought, identity, non-contradiction, excluded middle. The next one being that I actually experience and share a reality with other people, and that the reality is that there is a uniformity of that, like, well, 1 + 1 = 2 here, and it's going to equal that on the other side of the galaxy, and the acceleration due to gravity, or the weak nuclear force, the strong nuclear force, these aspects of physics apply uniformly across at least our reality, if not further. We don't know.
And I add one more to that, and that is that a predictive model is better than a non-predictive model.
Yeah. I'm baffled as to what the point was, because it seemed like, so what the call screener had said was that he thinks that either God exists or God doesn't exist is a false dichotomy, except that even if the laws of logic do not work in a black hole, they still work, and that's still a true dichotomy.
Right, exactly.
So it's like it's like if you imagined, let's take this abstract thought of Matt's, because it's of me, because evidently he's never bothered to look at what anybody else has said about philosophy from that. And Matt says either God exists or God doesn't exist. Let's take that statement and put it in a black hole and see if it's still true. And congratulations, you just wasted a half hour of the show.
Yeah. And I think there probably is a language barrier, because he was equivocating all over the place. Yeah. And that's easy enough to do when you're an English speaker. So
yeah. And I don't want to beat somebody up too much for, okay, maybe there's a subtle thing, but if somebody else from the Netherlands wants to perhaps do a video and explain it to people in another language, cool. Sure. We can go with that.